There's this clip that was circulating over on X this week of Dave Rubin speaking with Piers Morgan, and there's like a segment that obviously the anti-Israel crowd loved because they thought that Dave Rubin lost this bit, and Piers Morgan used all the same talking points that the anti-Israel crowd loved to use about, Israel starved people, they're not letting in the journalists, all that sort of other nonsense that goes on with that. And well, I'll show you the clip and we'll make a couple of comments after you've seen the clip.
Acknowledge that there's been no starvation, correct?
No.
You don't acknowledge
I
that?
don't acknowledge that.
Where are the videos and images of the starving Gazans?
Well, I've seen a lot, but you would dismiss them all as fakes. The UN says there was starvation, but you guys don't believe a word the UN says. The other official bodies say there was starvation. You don't want to hear a word they say. Israel denies everything. You can say that no Gazan has starved at all. The reports by almost every official body say the opposite, but you don't believe them. However, the best way to get to the truth is let journalists who are used to covering in war zones, let them go in and do their job, particularly now we have the ceasefire. There is a reason the Israeli government is not letting the media in. They are terrified about what the world will uncover.
I just think that's just...
Well, let them in.
I just think...
There's one way to find out.
A lot of them look fat. They have fresh clothes
I've
and
seen
fresh
lots
haircuts.
of images of Palestinians looking hungry.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't dispute that 20,000 plus children have died, right?
So whose fault is that? I mean...
You don't honestly think that life for a young Palestinian kid in Gaza in the last 2 years has been anything but utter hell-y. I do believe the 3-month blockade earlier this year was a criminal blockade. I believe it was deliberate starvation of a people, deliberately denying them food and aid. If you
has any other country in the history of the world been told to feed the people that are killing it?
If you look at the Geneva Convention, actually, but then no other country in the world has had the control that Israel has over Gaza, right?
Well,
which again is a whole separate issue. Show me another moment in the 75-year conflict where the response has been to kill 60 times as many people, and where you have hang on, let me finish. Where you have a government with people like Smodrich and Ben-Gvir who begin publicly, openly talking about ethnically cleansing all the Palestinians from Gaza, about annexing the West Bank, about taking complete control of all of it, to the point that Donald Trump had to step in and say that is not happening.
Random ministers
they're not random ministers.
about...
They're not two of the most senior people in the government.
No, but them talking about things is different. I mean,
I hear that a lot. Well, my point is this. You have a unique population in Gaza where half of them are under 18. There is a unique proportion of kids in this part of the world, right? So at what point do you try and find a different way to resolve this? The only solution that seemed to be being offered by Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, Smodrich and the others was to raise Gaza to the floor and to expel all Palestinians.
So,
Netanyahu would annex West Bank tomorrow.
He's been in power for 20-something years. He could have done it at any point. Notice he hasn't. I mean...
Come on.
No, but there's a couple things here. I mean, first off, I don't think any country in the world has ever been asked to feed the people that are holding its hostage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you ever called for any other country to do that, or anyone?
Well,
has anyone ever called for that?
Well, British prisoners of war in World War II were fed.
Yeah. But
what's the difference?
What?
Prisoners of war in World War II were fed, so what's the difference?
Because they were holding hostages. They're holding their people. I mean, to me, it seems that you as a British
people
citizen...
being held hostage in Nazi prisons. The Israeli government, which is a hard-right government, Smodrich and Ben-Gvir are not just right-wing, they're absolute far-right headbangers.
But meaning what? Meaning what? They have
Meaning what? They want to ethnically cleanse the Palestinian people. Come on, Dave, they do.
They're in the government and they haven't taken an extra inch of the West Bank. They're not...
Well, actually, that's not true.
They haven't.
They've been expanding settlements left, right and centre.
They haven't.
Yes, they have.
Piers,
you know they have.
Piers, have you been to the West Bank?
You don't think there's been any expansion of settlements on the West Bank?
They build apartments. They build apartments in current places.
Has there been an aggressive expansion of settlements in the West Bank during this war?
An aggressive expansion of settlements
in the West Bank during this war?
No, 100% not.
Dave, there has been. You see everything to the prism of... There's nothing to see here, Gus.
No.
Israel has done no wrong.
No.
Have they done any wrong?
I don't know how to conduct a war exactly, but I know that if
it's not my question. Has the Israeli government done anything wrong in the way they prosecuted this war?
Not that I know of.
This war didn't start on October the 7th. This is a conflict that's been on for 7 decades.
Notice how Piers Morgan says that there is a starvation, and all the major bodies love to say that there was a starvation. not pointing out who was at fault for the starvation, according to Piers and all of these bodies like the UN, which we don't actually believe at all. So Piers is right about that because they love to lie. It's more about who was responsible for the Palestinian starvation. Hamas was responsible, were they not? Israel tried to get in aid. It's a bit hard to get in aid when you've got the Hamas fighters firing upon innocent Palestinians, isn't it? And by the way, if you are a Hamas supporter, you were fed quite well. There's images of Hamas supporters, Palestinian people, that were quite well fed. Thank you very much. But obviously, like the mainstream media loves to paint Israel out to be like they're the worst of the worst. They're at fault for pretty much everything bad. You name it. It's always Israel's fault, right? Not Hamas's fault. But notice how Piers twists it to suit, well, you would say it's false. It's false. You don't believe it. So how do we know what's real? Because all the sort of major governing bodies, but they've twisted it. They've twisted the words. They've twisted the meaning. They've twisted who's actually really at fault. No one, and I mean no one, blames Hamas. If you are a pro-Israel person, you blame Hamas because you understand that Hamas is really at fault. But if you are anti-Israel, then obviously you blame Israel for everything. Even if Hamas is at fault, you still blame Israel because you're that against Israel. It's crazy. This post was shared by all the anti-Israel crowd. Dave Smith shared it. Gary Lineker, or whatever his name is, share the clip on Instagram. Everyone's saying, well done, Piers Morgan. And that's what Piers Morgan loves, isn't it? Praise. But they were saying that Dave Rubin did a terrible job. But if you actually really watch the full thing, the proper thing that's not edited, which you could clearly see it was edited from Dave Smith's account, that one is the one that went viral because it makes Dave out to be like he doesn't know anything. But really, if you watch the full interview, the context is there. The context is Dave Rubin actually schooled Piers Morgan on all of his points. Every single point that Piers tried to throw back at Dave had a counterpoint. And it was brilliant. It was actually proper. But of course, we missed that because that's what the internet is about, isn't it? It's just all about gotcha moments. It's how it looks, which is exactly what Hamas did. Hamas propaganda. So this actually shows the ignorance of Piers Morgan, a man who has platformed more Jew haters on his show than should be humanly possible. And of course, he won't even have an ex-Muslim on his show either. It's such a pathetic response from Piers Morgan that at the end of the clip, he was forced to use the failed ignorant line, "It didn't start on October 7th, which is what they always do. Of course, Dave Rubin didn't claim that either. A literal straw man argument since Piers Morgan failed so badly. Let's go through the point by point. There was no starvation in Gaza. There was no famine. Piers has seen pictures of starving Gazans, but these were of children with other ailments that caused them to look emaciated. This was not due to lack of food, albeit the IPC lied about famine. They claimed this as Israel was about to go into Gaza City. This turned into a falsehood, a lie. Piers may or may not know this by now. Regardless, he comes across as clueless regarding the data. Anyone on the pro-Israel side doesn't trust the UN. Yep, UNRWA are full on Hamas and their members took part in October 7th. So let journalists in. Okay, Piers is right on this. Yet there have been journalists in Gaza throughout the war. The trouble is they bring a Hamas narrative to the world that Piers and other supposedly responsible journalists just repeat, despite it being the word of a jihadist death cult. Key part of the exchange. Piers, you wouldn't dispute 20,000 children have died. Rubin, so whose fault is that? Piers literally doesn't answer this. He talks about a life of a young Palestinian in Gaza, The answer is Hamas are responsible for every death in the war they started on October 7th, with an invasion massacre and maintained for over 2 years by refusing to release the hostages. It continues today because Hamas refused to disarm as agreed in the Trump peace plan. Like so many experts on the war in Gaza, Piers Morgan just refused to mention Hamas. Seems like he's gone from mentioning Hamas 1 minute, then the next minute it's just like gone. It's not Hamas's fault anymore. The 3-month blockade was a war crime. No, it's not a war crime to starve a terrorist organization you're at war with. Nobody questions if Russia should feed Ukraine. I find it interesting how no one's really talking too much about the war over in Ukraine at the moment. But anyway, after more spurious claims, Piers then moves on to the West Bank and the Ben Greer and Smotrich. Obviously, no Palestinians have been ethnically cleansed from Gaza. Morgan, you have a unique population in Gaza that are under 18. Okay, don't start wars then. Don't put this population in harm's way. For what? To lose control of land in Gaza, which is all Hamas achieved? Don't use children soldiers. Don't use children as human shields. Hamas literally are not mentioned here at all. Morgan then claims because prisoners in the World War II were fed Israeli. Well, what about the Israelis during the Holocaust? They weren't fed. They were starved. This is an embarrassing moment. Morgan actually failed openly here. This war didn't start on October 7th narrative. After failing to land every other point in this exchange, Piers Morgan goes for a literal Hamas line in an actual admission that he has failed. Pick whatever date you want for when it started. The bottom line is that all wars involving Israel, including 7th of October, are simply about the existence of a Jewish state between the river and the sea. That's it. At this stage, you wonder if Piers Morgan thinks Israel should exist, since the guests on his show and the exchange just revealed Morgan to be an actual apologist for Hamas. How do I know this? Hamas are not mentioned once. Hamas have no agency. Well, how about that? Like I said, context matters. And when you're looking at someone like Piers Morgan, who, again, went on Tucker Carlson recently and just continues to spew utter nonsense because he's a propagandist, because he's all about the clicks, because it's what looks good for him. He's getting new audience members. And I spoke about this a number of times when I was calling out Piers Morgan beforehand. You can't trust these people at all. You try and have a decent conversation, and credit to Dave Rubin for trying to have a decent conversation, but you just can't. Until the responsibility lies on Hamas and you start blaming Hamas only, you can't have a proper conversation with these people, because they love to blame Israel because Israel is easy to blame. And the lines that are constantly thrown out on a consistent basis, Israel did this, they've done that. Look, I'm not saying that Israel is perfect in this, but it's all Hamas's fault at the end of the day. You've got to blame the terrorist organization, but I'm seeing loads of people defend it. Why? What's the point? If you want to do yourself a favor, read Douglas Murray's book on democracies and death cults. That's brilliant, by the way. It significantly helped me when it came down to the whole Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and Piers Morgan matters. Significantly helped me on how death cults begin, or just how cults begin in general, and how people use manipulative language, propaganda, you name it. They don't actually tell the damn truth. Sad. Sad, but it's the world that we live in at the moment. And I guess I'll try and do the very best that I can to tell the truth. Anyway, that's enough from me, but you guys take care, be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.